Hello and welcome back. I am Jason Forehand.
And I'm Dom Jones.
Welcome to Time to Change. And today we are talking to my buddy Jay Grooms is in the house. Human-centered leadership.
Yes.
Jay has an amazing program. Um, find out more by connecting with him on LinkedIn. He is also a fantastic photographer. I have some of his artwork in my house, and we want to get some more artwork. I want that red truck, buddy. I want to get that big, and I want to put it in Jody's office here for our anniversary. So I'm looking at trying to make that happen.
That would be nice.
All right. Well, look, let's get right to it, man. When we talk about human-centered leadership, that sounds great, but what does it mean?
Yeah, you're really hitting on the tip of what's important about practicing a leadership style, really of any kind, but it's specifically human-centered leadership. It's all about the actions, right? The activities. What do you actually do? And a lot of what I teach about human-centered leadership is it starts with us. It starts with you and yourself as a leader. And the first big step is understanding what are the things that are important to you. What's your mission, your personal mission? What are your personal values? A lot of people haven't really sat down to define this. We all have them, and they're very strong. And those are the things that help us make decisions. But they're also the things that help us to react emotionally to something that happens, or to sort of be triggered by an event. And understanding as a leader what those are is the first step before you can start helping other people and understanding how other people feel and what their values are. And then how do you interact with them? So it's really about starting with yourself, and then there's a whole path you can take that's really action filled.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I absolutely love. If I can pick up, Jay, I could tell this is a topic that you're really passionate about. In fact, I saw a recent post. From you. I think it was on LinkedIn where you talked about the fact that leadership needs to be redefined.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious if you could pick up on what Chasen was just asking you a little bit more. What are some, in your opinion, what are some of the principles of what human-centered leadership looks like?
Yeah, great question. The post I had put up really is, I think a lot of times when we talk about anything related to empathy or compassion or the word kindness, it's seen as a weakness. And in the way that we've practiced leadership in so many other areas, and the way that we have accepted a leadership style that is authoritarian or focused on profits or focused on function, the more we've accepted that, the more that the human side of leadership has really started to fall off. And the core values of human-centered leadership are courage, compassion, empathy, inclusivity, resilience, and conscious authenticity, right? So all of those have practical applications in any organization, whether it's a business, a nonprofit, a community organization, and even in politics, which are different kinds of leaders. We all recognize that. But the ones that we come in contact with every day, if you were to think about a leader, Jason and Don, both of you, in your past, someone who had a major impact on your life and your trajectory, you don't have to say it, but if you think about that person in your life that had that biggest impact, the behaviors and the qualities that that person had are almost always related to how you connected with them, how they made you feel. They took an interest in you, they cared about you, they were compassionate about where you were, and they helped you elevate. That's all human-centric. So we already in our hearts know that the best kinds of leaders are the ones that have those attributes, the ones that practice those things and share them with their teams around. And yet it sort of falls off because other styles of leadership can get temporary benefits or temporary success by just driving things and grinding through people, right? It's the places with high turnover. It's the places where it's a toxic work environment. We've all seen it, but sometimes the system rewards that because there's still success attached to it. What I'm trying to get out, and honestly, I just finished a book, The Path to Human-Centered Leadership. It's a 6-week book. It's not out yet. It will be soon. It's in testing phase. But really what that's about is taking your day-to-day with yourself, your team, and that team can be a neighborhood team that you work together to improve the neighborhood, or it can be an office team anywhere. And taking those interactions with the people around you and making them conscious and mindful, thinking about how you interact, thinking about the fact that your job as a leader, by definition, is just the people around you. It's not about getting tasks done. It's first about the people that are around you. How do you level them up? And there are studies and stories aplenty that prove that organizations that practice that are successful. They have a much more loyal customer base. They have a much more loyal employee base. They have higher retention rates, higher success rates, innovation. I mean, it goes all the way across the board. So it's a financial boon for them, but it's hard to get people to accept that level of connection with human beings sometimes in a work setting. And so I'm trying to break that mold and show that there are ways to do it. And it's not difficult if you put some time into it and change some processes. And it's definitely possible because there are places that practice it right now.
Well, well, there's a couple of different things that I want to come back to. One of the first things is you said the word conscious. You were naming all of the different things that you had, and you said conscious authenticity. And I want you to talk. I mean, most of the stuff that you said in that list of, hey, these are leadership qualities, those are, people understand what those are, but conscious authenticity. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so one of the biggest keys to the cohesion and success of a team, any team, is trust. When you have high trust within a group, you have much more production, you have better performance, you have teams that are dedicated. When there's a lack of trust, there tends to be this preservation mentality where people are just trying not to get caught doing something wrong or hiding things, even if it's not intentional. They're protecting themselves, right? And you get in this mindset. Yeah. Conscious authenticity as a leader means aligning your actions with your core values and beliefs. Like you're leading with integrity and you have a transparent culture within your group. Now, in business, there are things that you may not be able to share, but that's a way smaller list than most people realize. And sometimes holding back information, that lack of information with your team creates this vacuum and people fill it. If you don't know what's happening, you in your mind, you start to build what are the most probable things that are causing this. And in a business or in a team or an organization, that can be a death sentence for a team if it continues on. It causes rot, right? People don't trust anymore. They're not behaving. So conscious authenticity is putting action behind who you are and what you believe, not just saying the words. So it's similar to seeing a vision in a business that that they don't follow, or values that they don't follow. You don't trust it, and that makes it even worse than if they didn't have values to begin with. So as a leader, having those values, like we talked about, starting with understanding what your values are and then acting by them, and that level of transparency with your team to say, you know what, I made a mistake. I thought I was doing the right thing here. I put my energy behind this. It didn't work out. Here's what I learned from that. I thought this was the way to go. I think now I'm going to try a different approach. What do you all think? Is this going to get us where we need to go? That kind of conversation isn't as common as it should be. And being open with mistakes you make, with what values you have and why something is important to you, and just kind of sharing your process, that conscious part of authenticity, being conscious and mindful about being who you are, but also how you express it to your team. That's a part that builds a foundation for any team that you just can't live without, right? You can get away with a good personality. You can get away with being tactical or very skilled at your job. But if you don't have that trust, if people don't believe in who you are, you're never going to get them fully behind you. In the end, we're human animals, and we seek connection with other human animals. And there are ways that we seek that. It's trust, it's mutual values or mutual goals or vision that we're heading towards. It's the idea that someone is there with us and that we're doing something together. Conscious authenticity is a path to that leaders have that does not take much and has a huge ripple effect on the people around you. Imagine if the leaders that you were around started behaving the same way and how that cascades in the organization or group. It's really powerful.
Absolutely.
I don't think I've heard it framed that way. Conscious authenticity. That's a powerful.
Yeah,
one.
that's why I wanted to dive into that, because I was like, I love that.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And, you know, it really is about practices. Sometimes it's about doing things that you're not used to doing. You know, setting aside a time in your regular meetings, for example, to go around and talk about your failures, your mistakes, the things that you learned from, and treating that as important as ideas for moving forward. Treating that as if this is a critical part of who we are as a team. You're creating that safety. You're letting them know that, hey, we want to learn from mistakes. This is not a place where you shouldn't try new things. This is a place where you should innovate. And innovation means making mistakes. You have to make dozens of them before you get to the place that something is working. I used to do this activity with leadership training classes called the third, right? And you have them come up with ideas around a topic. It could be their team. It could be something they're doing with their organization. It could even be product related. You have them dump out their first set of ideas. 10 are their best ideas. They have to write them all down. And then after that time's up, you have them do it again, but you can't repeat ideas. So they need 10 newer ideas and they have to write them down. And then after that, the last segment is the one they struggle with the most, because that's the one they're digging the deepest for. Ideas that just are crazy or may not really, you know, they think it's not going to work, or I would never bring this up. That third tends to be the area that has the best ideas, always, because we have to get past those cultural blockades of what's acceptable and what ideas do I think everybody else wants to hear, and what are the ideas I think that the company wants to hear. You slip those off and put them on a piece of paper. You get back to that deep part of why you're doing what you're doing in those ideas. If you don't have trust in a class, it's easy, right? There's implied trust for a facilitator or trainer. Like, I'm coming in, people trust me. I do an intro to talk about why I should be trusted and why I've got background in this. But in an organization, if you can't find ways to dig into that third, the trust is the only way to get down to that, because people aren't going to share it. It's too much at stake. There's too much at risk in most people's jobs. It's their rent, it's their family, it's food. And so they're going to keep that to themselves down here. That conscious authenticity opens a door into innovation that people didn't even know they had, because now they feel safe, they feel heard, they feel valued, and they're just going to charge forward, which is the best result for a team, right?
That's fantastic.
Jay, I am absolutely going to borrow that concept. That
Please.
exercise. I will give you credit. I promise.
Please.
I'll give you credit, but that's a powerful exercise. It sounds like.
It is. It's sometimes a little awkward to get started if you're just doing it for the first time, but making it part of the agenda. And there's several other things that I have that are really good to add to regular meetings that help build that trust with teams and help you as a leader start to build habits. But that's a great one. And honestly, I've had it work in many formats with other leaders, and you know, it's a nice level to be at if you've never been there as a leader. So it's your values. You have to understand who you are and why it matters to you. Once you can do that authentically, the next layer is connecting with an individual, some other person, and that is understanding their values and what drives them. And that includes your boss. That includes your leader, understanding what their values are and how you can work with that. Because again, everything should be aligned to, we're all going for the same thing. We're all trying to achieve the same success. If you have an outlier, maybe a manager who is, you know, not doing their job, or you've got other stuff, that's a different way to approach it. But I'm talking about your common leader that you deal with. Focus on what those goals are and then charge ahead with them, and know that there are many paths to goals. And maybe that's a way that you can, you know, overcome that fear of, I'm doing something different. Maybe it's a risk for me. Maybe I won't be supported with it. But if you can focus on what you're trying to achieve, you know, setting that vision on the horizon and letting people surprise you with how they get there, it's hard for managers, it's hard for organizations to argue against that effort to get to a goal. And it makes you feel safer, you know, trying new things like that.
Yeah.